So I thought I'd record a voiceover on what happened. This was out in the middle of nowhere, Wisconsin. The weather turned bad. When I first started during the day, it wasn't that bad. It just got progressively worse. I'm going about 45 miles an hour here. Um, the plows haven't really been doing a good job of keeping up with the road. The speed limit's 65. I'm taking it easy. I've been looking for a place to park, somewhere I could pull over. I got about 30 miles to go till I get to my destination. It isn't even snowing right now, but it's cold. And right about here, the wind picks up real bad and almost blows me into the left lane. Here, it actually does blow me into the left lane, and I almost immediately lost traction. I'm fighting for control of the truck, and I'm not getting it. And eventually, I completely lose traction, and this is what happens. Luckily, I was fine. No one else was involved. It wasn't too terrible, but yeah, this is what happened. So this is when I left earlier in the day. It was about 3:30 in the afternoon, and even though this parking lot looks a little messy, the roads themselves were clear. It wasn't snowing. It wasn't windy. It had been fine. I had been sitting there for over an hour talking with the planner and whatnot, trying to figure out what the deal was with the load they wanted. They wanted me to run empty about 150 miles from where I was at over to Green Bay, and it was all on U.S. highways, and I didn't really want to do it. But the planner pretty much told me in no uncertain terms that if I didn't do this load, I wouldn't be able to get home on time. And so I was like, okay, fine, I'll do it. And they assured me that it wasn't that bad. So they had just dispatched me on the load. And I decided to head out. Like I said, the roads looked okay. The reason why the windshield is kind of is it is cold outside, and the dash cam is in an area of the windshield that doesn't get hit by the wipers all that well, and that's actually mostly fog, because my defroster isn't the best on the truck. So, but you can see the roads are clear. I mean, it hasn't been snowing at all, and with this kind of weather, if you shut down when the weather's like this in Wisconsin in February, you'll be stuck here until April. I mean, that's just the way it is. It's almost always like this. So, here I'm turning on to the highway, and once again, it's clear. It wasn't that bad. So I thought I was okay. I've driven in far worse than this. Never had a problem. So anyway, the reason they said they let me go is I should have never driven that day, and they actually sent out a message earlier in the day that honestly I didn't receive until after the accident had happened, because I had been just receiving a multitude of messages all day about snow and whatnot, which It had been snowing earlier in the day, but at that point it had cleared up. And the message they had sent said Indiana, Illinois, and Iowa was to shut down. I was in Wisconsin. I didn't think the message applied to me, but whatever. They said until it's lifted. Well, like I said, I had been talking with the planner about the load, and they dispatched me on the load, so I didn't think it applied to me. So, anyhow, I, went for the next 3 hours, and I was okay until, as you saw, what happened. So the most egregious thing about all of this is what happened after the accident. They were able to get me towed out onto the road, and the truck was drivable. So I finished the 30 miles I needed to go to get over to the Menasha terminal, and I shut down there. The next morning, I was pretty much told I was fired, and they were going to give me a Greyhound ticket to get home. I didn't really want to ride a Greyhound because of the whole pandemic situation. So I told them I was going to look into trying to rent a car, and I proceeded for the rest of the day to try and rent a car, but no one would rent me a car because of I didn't have a major credit card, and my driver's license was from Florida. So I eventually got back in touch with my driver manager, explained the situation. She told me that she would try to get me a Greyhound ticket to get home. They said they would cover it. I'd be fine. Well, come, office hours, closing time, I still had not received any information on a Greyhound ticket. And my driver manager had already left the office. I kept making some calls, trying to figure out what was going on. And eventually I was told I would need to buy my own Greyhound ticket home. So that's what I had to do, and it ended up costing me about $260 to be able to do that. So I loaded up what I could carry with me, with like 2 carry-ons or 2 check bags in my carry-on, and then I went into the terminal to talk to the after-hours guy to see if he could print out my Greyhound ticket for me. And the guy proceeded to lose his mind, yelling at me, telling me I needed to get off the property, I was fired, he could get me for trespassing, all this other stuff. It was insane. I mean, I'd never been treated like that. After everything that had happened, I had nowhere to go. I had barely any money, and as it was, I could barely afford to get home. I definitely couldn't afford a hotel room on short notice. And I ended up calling one of the guys I'd been talking to in Atlanta, and he ended up calling the guy and calming him down. But I don't know what that was all about. The next morning, I went in to see about getting a ride over to the Greyhound station, and they pretty much told me I had to take care of that myself. So I ended up having to get an Uber over to the Greyhound station to take my bus. So yeah, it took 3 days to get home. I talked to my driver manager during the trip, and she told me that she was going to look into getting me reimbursed for the Greyhound ticket. That never happened. And then, of course, I'm having to go on my own dime, and I'm going to have to drive all the way up to Wisconsin to get my stuff out of the truck. And I'd asked, if I could get my last paycheck. She told me they were going to work on it, and I didn't get that until today, which is Friday, the week after the accident. So I'm probably going to head up there Sunday. I'm going to start driving up there Sunday morning because, I need to get there during business hours or whatever to be able to work on it and get my stuff out of the truck. So I'm going to have to drive up there in my own car, drive all the way back home. It's like a 1,500 mile one-way trip, so 3,000 miles in my personal car to get my stuff out of the truck. And they haven't been willing to help me with this at all. I mean, I've been with the company pretty much for over 5 years. Been a safe driver the whole time. been a responsible driver the whole time. And this is how they show their loyalty to their drivers. Ever since Knight Transportation got involved with Swift, it's just gone downhill. There's no loyalty anymore. There's no respect anymore. They'll terminate you at the drop of a hat. You are pretty much just a truck number and a driver number anymore. And it's sad to see the company go this way. I've seen drivers, like I met a driver a few months ago who has had like 6 backing accidents in the last year, and he's still employed there. This accident that happened, there was nothing I could have done. I got caught out in a bad situation. I made the best of it, and it happens. It was a bad storm, and there was a lot more horrific things that were happening. I was being as careful as I could be, and I still got completely screwed over by the company that I had been working my butt off for. I hadn't been home since about December 22nd, and I'd been out on the road hauling freight and doing my job, and this is how I get repaid for bending over and working my butt off for the company. So, if you're considering working at Swift, or you are a current employee at Swift, I want you to take into consideration what happened in my situation. And I'm sure this is not an isolated incident. I had another friend of mine back in December. He had an accident where he got blown off the road out in New Mexico, and they'd been pressuring him to run. He was on the Walmart dedicated account out of the Los Lunas Walmart distribution center, and they had him driving in situations that were less than ideal, and similar thing happened, and he got injured in his accident, and they are just taking every opportunity to shaft him. They're denying his workman's comp claim. They're giving him the runaround. It's been a nightmare for him, and he's been unable to work and support his family because of his injuries. Swift is not the company it used to be. They used to be a decent company. They're not anymore. So, I just thought I would put this out there. And, I know at the end of the day, it's at-will employment. They can fire you for whatever reason they want. But I always thought that they had to make sure that you got home if they fired you away from home. And they pretty much stranded me. And I had to find my own way home. And that's messed up. That is seriously messed up. So, yeah. Anyhow, I got some leads on some local jobs, and we're going to see how that pans out. I'm tired of this over-the-road stuff. My family can't take it anymore. I can't take it anymore. I'm just done with it. This whole industry has gone to hell in a handbasket, and yeah. So anyhow, that's it for now. I'll wrap this up. It's been a pretty long video, and I'll say 7 threes, and I hope everybody is good and is safe out there, and that's it.